Good afternoon and welcome to BetaDen. Hello, my name's Linda Smith and I'm CEO of BetaDen. And welcome to BetaDen's first Tech Tuesday webinar. Thank you for registering for this webinar version of the virtual Tech Tuesday series we have put together for 2020. Using topics, content and speakers with real applications, development knowledge and experience to stimulate the wider BetaDen Tech network and to grow your awareness of how new and emerging technologies can be used. Maybe in your business or a future tech startup that you're even just starting to think about. Today you will hear 2 presentations from our experts. Then we will follow with a short Q&A session before closing. Please use the Zoom platform to load any questions to either presenter. Kicking off the series today, we will be discussing blockchain and the practical and deliverable way on how we can change society with blockchain. Our speakers will be positioning both societal and industry benefits from the full potential of blockchain and other distributed ledger technologies, DLT. You'll be hearing from 2 separate companies leading development in this field. We have 3 speakers today. The first company is BlockMark Technologies. I'd like to tell you a little bit about them before they start. So BlockMark Technologies is an agile, high technology startup that develops blockchain applications. Its flagship service is BlockMark Registry, which enables enterprise certificates and accreditations to be digitally issued, verified and managed. The company has also launched a digital collectible marketplace using non-fundable tokens called BlockMark Gems. BlockMark also delivers hands-on executive leadership workshops in the finance and banking sector about blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and smart contracts. May I hand over now to both Tom Alcott and Dr. Adrian Burden to lead this first presentation.
Hey, thank you. Good morning, it's Tom here. Thank you for that introduction, Linda. Can everyone hear me? I hope you can. So first of all, let me say thank you for inviting us to talk today, and also we're very much looking forward to getting started on cohort 3 of BetaDen. My colleague Adrian and I have been working in blockchain now for 3 or 4 years, and we're just at the point of launching some products. So I'll tell you about those in a moment. But if to begin in the context of a revolution, a tech revolution. Most tech revolutions sort of go through a classic cycle of a big bang moment for blockchain. That was in 2009, then eruption and frenzy. And you would be hard-pressed to miss the Bitcoin explosion in 2017, where values soared 12,000%. That's the frenzy. It then followed swiftly by the crash, just like the .com. Same for the railways, same for the canals. Every major tech revolution has a crash. And now we're entering a deployment phase where we are expecting very soon to see killer apps where society will change. In practice, you won't see those changes. They'll be behind the scenes, but they will very much be a major shift. So before I crack on explaining my colleague Adrian what blockchains are, let's talk a little bit about Bitcoin, because that's the first one, the one that people have heard of. Bitcoin is obviously a cryptocurrency. It's cryptographically secure, but effectively it's money, and it's worth taking just a minute to think about what money is. Now, money's been around for 4,000 years or more. I'm going to give you a 2-minute rundown of what it is here. Effectively, it's a store of value, a means of exchange, or a unit of account. It helps if it's durable, portable, divisible, and fungible. We'll come on to fungibility in just a moment, because a dollar is a dollar is a dollar, a Bitcoin is a Bitcoin. You can exchange them. There are obviously, in the history of the world, lots of different types of money. People tend to think of it as banknotes and coins now, but gold was the first kind of money, cowrie shells as well, widely used, silver shekels, and pretty much anything can be used as money. My favorite is the Yapese ray stones from Micronesia. I recommend looking into that. These are massive stone currency. Also, Worcester porcelain, Royal Worcester used porcelain money when they ran out of silver coins a while back. And famously, the Tang dynasty invented paper money, promissory notes, because obviously physical money, copper coins, etc., are too heavy at large volumes and represent a risk. But what's worth remembering here is money is in circulation is only 4% of what money is. 96% of money is actually electronically held on ledgers now. And that's where Bitcoin comes in. So Bitcoin is basically the latest digital payment scheme. So if you imagine computers being invented and you can put entertainment on computers and shopping on computers, why can't you put money on computers? And that was the problem that Bitcoin was trying to solve. And it's the 99th digital payment system after eCash and Hashcash and Netcash and BitGold. PayPal was an attempt at doing that as well. So PayPal was originally supposed to be a type of money, but it eventually became an exchange instead. Tokens are also money, so don't forget car wash tokens, laundrette tokens, coupons, vouchers, and that Bristol pound, Brixton pound, Totnes pound, they're all types of means of exchange like money. Now, the problem here is that central banks control the flow of money. And what Bitcoin was trying to solve was, how can I stop central banks messing up inflation for Venezuela, for Zimbabwe, the Weimar Republic? Also, Bitcoin tries to solve the problem of double spending. Adrian will tell you a bit about this in just a moment. So Satoshi Nakamoto is the anonymous co-founder or co-founders of Bitcoin, and has wisely chosen to stay anonymous. Some people think he's dead, but Adrian will tell you a little bit more about what Bitcoin is built on, which is a blockchain.
Okay, so thank you, Tom. So to understand the sort of the value and the way that the Bitcoin platform works, you have to understand blockchain, and blockchain is more than just Bitcoin. So the whole premise about a cryptocurrency and any money is being able to keep a record of how it's being spent. So the best way to think of a blockchain, firstly, is to think of it as a database. And in this case, it's a database with multiple copies spread around the world. And this is where we get the term decentralized or distributed ledger technology from. So you have multiple copies of the record secured around the world. And every time the record changes, so every time in effect you create that new Excel spreadsheet, you're locking it down based on what was there beforehand. And if you get this right, the idea is that you have a trusted platform of data, which should enable you to do peer-to-peer transactions. And the key there is that you can exchange with somebody else directly without having to go through a central bank, for example, to clear your cash. And this will only work if the whole system is trusted, and that when you exchange peer-to-peer, you trust that the person that is sending you the money is indeed able to send you the money and isn't going to double spend it with someone else. And so you have to have a consensus mechanism, a mechanism of trust. And so this is achieved with blockchain using cryptography to actually make sure that all the records that are created on the blockchain are locked down mathematically. So as you move through your spreadsheets, for example, what you do is you lock them with a cryptographic hash, in this case, so that they can't be changed. And then you create a chain of that record over a period of time. So this leads to the term mining, which you may have heard with blockchain. And what mining is the mathematical solving of a puzzle in order to lock this data. And this is happening all around the world in different locations. And you have these mining rigs which are solving the problems to enable the data to be locked down and provide that trust. And in order for this to work, you have to reward the miners. And this is how the blockchain and the Bitcoin system works, is that when the miners solve the problem and lock down a particular block, they're rewarded with some Bitcoin. And something you'll see in the news very recently is a term called halvening, if you follow blockchain. And this is where the reward that is going to be given to the miners in the future is half what it is presently. And this was built into the protocol and is actually a very interesting game theory protocol about how much reward is required for there to be trust in the system. Ultimately, though, you have a decentralized system. And the problem with that is that, unlike with a bank account, where when you lose your credit card or you forget your password, you can go to the bank and get it sorted out, if you're in a decentralized system like blockchain, the public and private keys, the equivalent of your bank account and your password, are very much your own responsibility. If you lose them, then unfortunately you lose all the money associated with that account. And in terms of accounts, what actually happens with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is that you store your value in things called wallets, which you have access to. Tom.
So that brings us on to one of the main myths around blockchain and Bitcoin is the high energy costs. Now, obviously, as I spoke earlier about money, there is a cost for getting gold out of the ground. It has to be rare, it has to be hard to get. Sand and water make really bad currencies. They're too ubiquitous, too much of it around. So silver and gold, there's an energy cost. Now, the energy cost for solving the computational problems is increasingly high as the problems get increasingly harder. And that's one of the main criticisms of blockchain, that it's too wasteful of the world's energy resources, that it's particularly in time of climate change. Now, everyone in blockchain knows this, and new systems moving away from proof of work to proof of stake and other algorithms and off-chain solutions are occurring. So energy costs will come down. So the mining rigs at the moment that are doing the mining of Bitcoin and various blockchain tend to be in low energy areas of China and Iceland and geothermal springs and solar areas, Arizona, etc. That means that blockchain is very much a worldwide global thing, which also means it's very hard to regulate because every area has its own jurisdictions and judicial systems. So that obviously provides a perfect fertile ground for blockchain to go dark and for it to be used by criminals for moving assets around. And anti-money laundering and know your customer, AML, KYC are huge parts of blockchain. In practice, it's a very poor criminal system because every single entry in the ledger is tracked. And Silk Road was the famous one, and everyone involved in Silk Road has been locked up and the keys have been thrown away. What you do find is that hacking happens not of the blockchain itself, which is cryptographically secure, but of exchanges, the on-off ramps, if you like. It's a bit like leaving the doors to NatWest Bank open. The sterling currency is still fine, but the NatWest exchange, or the bank in this case, has been robbed. That is what you read in the papers about hacking exchanges, about high energy costs, about darkness. Actually, it's much, much less dark than plain cash.
So we've talked a little bit about the blockchain backbone. We've talked a little bit about Bitcoin and the idea of a cryptocurrency. What we want to show you now is how these preliminary ideas are evolving and how this is going to have the impact on society that we're so interested in. So the first thing is there's more than one cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is the famous one. On this slide here, you can see the top 11. In fact, it carries on down to 400 on this slide. And today there are something like 5,400 cryptocurrencies in circulation. Obviously, some are more trusted than others, but this has come around because people can do their own coin offerings, something called an initial coin offering, which means you or I or any other business can actually create their own token or coin on a blockchain, an existing blockchain or a new blockchain, and roll it out around the world, try and get people to start using it and use it as a means of exchange. So this already is a really interesting area because as people start to deploy different currencies and tokens, they can take control of remittance around the world, of finance, and move away from the central bank. Now, this leads on to how central banks are looking at cryptocurrencies. It is possible to have a blockchain system that's private or permissioned. So the blockchain that I explained for Bitcoin is distributed around the world and is in effect very open source, and people can trust it and use it to exchange their Bitcoin. But equally, consortia can set up their own permissioned blockchains, which means they can use the infrastructure, but it's not quite as open as, for example, the Bitcoin system is. And an example of this is the R3 Corda consortium, which are a group of banks that are using it to explore whether blockchain can help with international remittance of funds around the world from different national banks. Another company that's also looked into this is Stellar, which has their own distributed ledger technology. And this is designed specifically for low-cost unbanked remittance. So already in society, banks are really important. Having access to finance is really important to start a business. What we might see with blockchain is that the ability to send money between customers, both in the same country and overseas, will be greatly facilitated. And this is why the Facebook-led consortium Libra has also gained a lot of interest recently, because what they've done is pulled together a consortium of a range of different companies, some of them well-known like Uber and Spotify and Coinbase, to look at whether they could roll out a coin based on blockchain technology, which obviously taps into the 2.5 billion users of Facebook and the Facebook communities. So this is really one to watch, because this could open up blockchain as a consumer-based product, if you like, and allow businesses and people around the world to use a cryptocurrency. And the last one I wanted to mention on this slide, which is also really interesting and very contemporary, is the fact that China is looking at a blockchain service network at the moment, and talking about a digital currency electronic payment system based on a permission blockchain. In other words, making the yuan into a crypto yuan, which will obviously create a lot of problems for other countries around the world, which would regard China as a powerful state if they roll out their own cryptocurrency. And this is also an opportunity for businesses to watch how this evolves and potentially be able to increase trade within the China mainland. So cryptocurrencies is not everything. Tom mentioned fungible tokens. It is quite possible to use blockchain to exchange non-fungible tokens. And what we mean by this are individual items, for example, digital art. If you think a piece of artwork is unique and you could exchange that between each other, then you can actually build up digital collectibles on the blockchain. And this has been done both in terms of proof of concept and has been also widely accepted in some communities, for example, in South Korea and the US. And it's actually built on an evolution of the blockchain, one of which is called Ethereum, which is more about just moving money, but it's actually about distributing code around the world so that you can actually have things called smart contracts. And David will also mention this in his talk in a few minutes. But what's interesting about smart contracts is that you can deploy logic. And this means that as certain conditions are met, the blockchain can automatically deploy either money or other types of contracts and logic statements. And the result is that you end up with this almost autonomous system, which, as long as you trust and as long as you've coded up correctly at the beginning, can cut out a lot of the middlemen organizations which we're familiar with today, like insurance brokers, lawyers, and bankers. And this leads on to where we're going to be heading, which are distributed apps. In other words, apps that are distributed rather than centralized. And again, David will talk about this and give some examples in a few minutes. There are, as you might expect, lots and lots of applications. And what I wanted to say is the reason why Edison is there is you can think about blockchain as the protocol, a bit like electricity. And of course, Edison invented the light bulb, which is one app on electricity. And in fact, since then, we've had lots and lots of apps that use electricity, like washing machines and computers and so forth. So as long as you think about blockchain as the enabler, there ought to be lots and lots of different applications other than just Bitcoin. And indeed, as long as you're mindful of the digital physical divide, in other words, linking what's happening in the real world with what's happening in the digital world, there are a whole range of applications that people are now exploring using blockchain. I've given a few examples here. Muller, Maersk, and IBM are looking at using blockchain through the supply chain as things move around the world. The B3I Insurance Consortium includes a number of big insurance companies like Allianz and AXA and Zurich. They're looking at how to deploy blockchain solutions to facilitate insurance settlement. Medical chain is very topical at the moment with things like COVID-19, because what they're trying to do here is use the blockchain to manage the privacy aspects and the identity aspects of medical data records. And again, David will talk a little bit about this aspect of blockchain as well. And then finally, in terms of the digital art, other examples include Super Rare, who actually put art onto the blockchain and allow you to exchange it. Provenance are looking at linking the provenance and origin of food in your supply chain to prove using blockchain, for example, that it's line caught tuna. And Everledger is looking at tracking diamonds using blockchain and using that as a distributed database of the provenance of diamonds. course, diamonds are real gems in the real world, and what Tom will talk about now is something we've done using the digital blockchain collectible.
Great, thanks, Adrian. So just to wrap up here, BlockMark Gems was one of our early proof of concept projects. So if you're not Elizabeth Taylor, married to Richard Burton, collecting diamonds for a hobby, I can suggest you collect these digital diamonds instead. Now, digital collectibles is a thing. Obviously, collectibles is a thing. You've got Panini cards, football cards, match attacks. You've got Pokemon cards, baseball cards, cigarette cards, etc. But what's interesting is taking this into the digital world, because you can track and trace, if you like, all of the birth of the gem. You can track the ownership of it, the cost of it, and the value of it as the supply and demand of the gems changes. So what we've built is this platform on the Ethereum blockchain just to test the non-fungible token ecosystem. And we'd like to offer you a couple of gems today if you'd like to get stuck in and learn how to use an Ethereum wallet and how to remix gems. So this is just a proof of concept, really, just to explain how art can be transferred online, especially digital art. You can obviously just swap out the gems later on for certificates, for example, and that's our second project. So our important project is BlockMark Registry. If 10% of all certificates in the world are fake or thereabouts, you do end up with a surprisingly high amount of fake doctors and fake solicitors and fake taxi drivers and bus drivers and fake airline pilots and so forth. And there's quite a lot of fake degrees out there and qualifications. So what we're doing at BlockMark is to simply register certificates that are issued by accreditation bodies through certifying bodies. We're just simply registering that on the blockchain as a log, a timestamp log of a certificate ID. And again, we'd like to offer you a certificate for putting up with our dulcet tones this morning or this afternoon. So you'll be able to claim a certificate, and hopefully you can click through the blockchain log and see how it all hangs together on the blockchain ledger. So I'm going to sign off from me. Adrian, did you have any final closing remarks?
Yes, I just wanted to say that the best way to understand blockchain and how it might impact your own lives in the future and your own businesses is to actually start doing it now and getting involved. So there's a few links on this slide which will help explain some of the things we've talked about. The first one I've listed is a blockchain explorer. The key with blockchain is that you can go and look at all of the transactions that have occurred since the beginning of the blockchain. So in terms of the Bitcoin, you can go back right back to 2009 and using a blockchain explorer, explore every single transaction that has occurred, hence the Open Ledger platform. We mentioned Ethereum. You can do the same with Etherscan. So you can go and have a look at how the Ethereum blockchain is arranged and the sort of things that are listed on that. And then if you actually want to buy some Bitcoin or some Ether, you can use an exchange such as Coinbase. And Coinbase is also a great resource with lots of other information. And then once you've got some cryptocurrency, you actually want to spend it, for example, buying something like BlockMark Gems or some other digital collectible, you need a wallet that can interface with a web browser. And a good example of a wallet is MetaMask, so that you credit that with your cryptocurrency, and then you can visit websites such as BlockMark Gems and purchase the gems or other digital collectibles. And we've listed our 2 websites there. And as Tom mentioned, if you would like to receive some free gems as a result of attending this today, you can do that on the BlockMark Gems by signing up for an airdrop. So I think that's probably the best way to learn, is to get hands-on. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much to both Adrian and Tom for our first presentation. And I hope you kind of have all gleaned a lot of information out of those slides and the positioning of blockchain. Now we're going to move on to our second speaker today.